Good afternoon and welcome for this webinar titled Finance 2022. Not speaking to be on mute so that it will not create disturbance. So friends, as you are aware that the Union Budget was presented on 1st day of February 2022 and after discussion in Lok Sabha, it has been now passed by the Lok Sabha. We are awaiting passing of it by Rajya Sabha and thereafter signature by the President to become a Finance Act. So today, although we have stated Finance Act 2022, it is really in making, but we believe that there may not be any changes in Rajya Sabha and it will get stamp of Rajya Sabha and go ahead to the President where it will be approved. So this particular year's budget had finance bill had certain significant features. First is virtual digital assets. Now there has been substantial discussion on cryptocurrency and such other assets. The government is not permitting them to be transacted. However, with the advice of RBI, they have not declared them to be illegal. So today, the position government has taken is they are sounded a note of caution for transactions in cryptocurrency, and the hazardous of risks have been sounded by RBI. RBI has also red flagged cryptocurrency as far as the other banks are concerned. Now, in order to discourage the constituents from indulging into transactions of digital currency, cryptocurrency, this new clause has been brought in where virtual digital assets will be taxed at 30%, and there are certain other deterrent provisions in this particular taxation to which certain amendments have also been made while passing the bill at Lok Sabha. So we will have to understand the concept of digital assets and what changes the Lok Sabha has accepted. One new concept of updated return has also been introduced by this particular finance bill, which is also accepted with certain changes as far as the Lok Sabha passed bill is concerned. This is similar to a revised return, but then in case of revised return, it doesn't cost you. In case of updated return, maybe 25% or 50% depending upon the duration of 1 year or 2 years, it will cost you. And this percentage is not only applicable on the amount of income tax, but it shall also be applicable for the amount of income tax plus interest thereon. So it costs. Institute did represent that this cost is a bit very heavy. If you want really assessors to come forward to rectify their errors, then cost should be a reasonable one. But it appears that this particular suggestion has not been accepted. Then there were certain judgments, High Court judgments, that if you are paying cess, then considering the distinction between 1922 Act, 1961 Act, the word cess earlier appeared in Section 40A. Subsequently, it was subsequently it was withdrawn. So courts have taken a view that although the tax payable is not allowable as a deduction while computing business income, cess is not partaking in character of tax, and therefore it stands allowable. In case of employees' contribution to Provident Fund, various High Courts have taken a decision that although Section 36 disallows if it is not paid on or before due date under PF Act, ESI Act, the respective act under which the deduction is made. But courts have held that, okay, if not deductible under those sections, maybe Section 43B will take care of it, because it says that only contribution to labor welfare funds, and it does not have any suffix like employees contribution or employers contribution. As far as Section 14A is concerned, we were told by various courts that if there is no income, then the disallowance will not attract, even if you are possessing any assets which is likely to yield tax-free income, or the disallowance shall be restricted to the amount of income which is earned and that has not been exposed to tax. So friends, these were some of the decisions which were rendered by High Courts, but they were not in line with the philosophy of the CBDT, and therefore explanations have been added overturning all these decisions. So as far as this case is concerned, the amendment to section 40 explains that it is never, it is always part of income tax. Of course, if you read Finance Act, that also says that income tax shall be increased by the amount of cess. So a further explanation has been added to do away the effect of those High Court judgments. Secondly, employees' contribution to Provident Fund, if it is paid belatedly beyond the due date, which is applicable under respective labor law, then also the court said it is allowable. The amendment says that it shall not be allowable. And under section 224, it already is included as income. In case of section 14A also, it says that even if you have not received income, that shall not deter the amount of disallowance. So any expenditure incurred to earn tax-free income shall also be considered as a disallowable amount. Whether you receive income, you do not receive income, that is immaterial. Now, all these amendments have come by way of an explanation. So we have to understand from the experts whether they will be applicable prospectively after 1st April 2022, or they will also be applicable in earlier years assessments, and particularly in case of assessments and appeal where the proceedings are pending, or they will also be applicable where the proceedings have been concluded. See, a case has been taken before the, say, tribunal, and tribunal has ruled in favor of the assessee maybe 1 year ago that cess is allowable deduction. Employee's contribution to Provident Fund, even if paid belatedly as per respective law, but paid on or before the due date, then in case it has been allowed. So tribunal confirms my allowance, and thereafter the case has been set at rest. Income tax department has not gone further. So whether in such cases also there is possibility of reopening, so that we will have to understand from the experts. The new section 194R, which calls for TDS from perquisites, what complications are likely to be surfaced and faced by the taxpayers for the purpose of this TDS under section 194R, that also we have to understand. And besides that, there are various other small and big changes which are proposed by the budget, and to which, while passing by the Lok Sabha, I think 38 amendments have been made. So it was thought appropriate by the Direct Taxes Committee that we should have this discussion on Finance Act 2022, because whatever is discussed at the time of Finance Bill may be relevant at that point of time, but really the field will be governed by the Act. And this particular piece of legislation which is passed by the Act, almost 99.9%, it will become Act after procedural formalities of going to Rajya Sabha and thereafter to the President. So friends, we are lucky indeed that at the behest of our Vice Chairman, CA Dr. Raj Chawla, various experts in the field have agreed to enlighten the audience and tell us what are those all aspects that we need to consider. So we have with us in the panel Advocate IP Bansalji, who is an expert in tax, and he has served as a member of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, the judicial member, and he carries with him experience of number of decades. So I welcome you, sir. We have Sunil Gargji. He is also a renowned tax expert from New Delhi, and he has always assisted our Direct Taxation Committee whenever we find difficulties, and here also he has readily agreed to join the panel. So I welcome CA Sunil Gargji. Thirdly, we have CA Asim Chawla ji, who is also a renowned tax expert, and he also always keep on contributing to the initiatives taken up by Direct Tax Committee of ICAI. So, and today also he was amidst arbitration proceeding, but since he had committed, he has joined this particular panel and physically available on screen. So I thank you, Asim Chawla ji, for really coming for the purpose of these discussions, and you will be enlightening our audience. And CA Raj Agarwal ji, who is also a renowned tax expert, who has joined this panel, and he also is contributing to our Direct Tax Committee expert. So Raj Chawla ji, I am also thankful to you for coordinating with all these luminaries and taking their time, and we are eagerly waiting for these legal experts, the tax experts, to enlighten us, to enlighten the audience about the bill that has been passed by the Lok Sabha, which is Finance Bill 2022. So over to you, Shrutika.
So sir, we will start the panel discussion with IT Bansal.
Namaskar. I am thankful to Chitale ji, Sri Raj Chawla ji, for inviting me to this panel discussion, which is very useful in the time prevailing. So I am going to discuss disallowance under section 40A and expansion of 37(1) explanation meaning, and thereafter I am going to discuss section 40A clause 2 Roman 2, and then again section 158AB, which is newly inserted. So first, coming to section 14A, there is a decision of Delhi High Court and various other high courts that when there is no exempted income earned by the assessee during the year, then there will be no disallowance of 14A. So to overcome that difficulty, an explanation has been inserted in section 14A, clarifying that whether there is income or not, exempted income, exempted income or not, if an expenditure has been incurred in regard to that income, then it has to be disallowed, and it is presumed to be disallowed as always, have always applied. So this amendment they are bringing to the act to understand that even if there is no income, exempt income, then also if any expenditure is incurred in relation to that income, that will be disallowed. So the earlier we were availing the benefit of that non-disallowance of on this ground, and this has been made applicable with effect from 1st April 2022. So expressly it has been made applicable from 1st April 2022. Therefore, it would be difficult for the department to make the disallowance on the basis of this amendment in respect of the issues which are pending in appeal or which are to be decided up to assessment year 2021. So it may be applicable to 20, then it will remain. From 1st April 22, then it will be going to assessment year 2023-24. So it is the opinion, and department can take different view, but that different view of the department is defendable in the appeals. So my opinion is that even if the disallowance is made, then it will not be falling to the test of law. So this is my. So now I am coming to 37. That is very important. Earlier 37 explanation 3 is added to subsection 1 of section 37. So what is the term which they have explained further is that the term uses expenditure incurred by an assessee for any purpose which is an offence or which is prohibited by law. So this has been narrowly interpreted by the court sometimes. So taking benefit of this, various decisions have been made that whether it is an offence, or it is only compensation which is granted, or whether it is a offence. So all these, just like medical companies are giving doctors the gifts and various other benefits, those were against the policy of IMA and all these things. And then it was held that it is not disallowable by some court. And then ultimately Kolkata High Court has decided it, that Kolkata Tribunal in Kanoria Chemical and Industries Limited case recently, that it is disallowable, considering after various decision and all these things, to taking shelter to that Kolkata Tribunal decision. This amendment has been brought. Now we will discuss briefly, because it is very important, to discuss this. Now, explanation, what explanation says? Explanation, first clause says that for any purpose which is an offense under or which is prohibited by any law for the time being in force in India or outside. Earlier to this, we have never seen that outside India was there. So there might be some cases noted by the government that peoples were taking shelter of the non-existence of outside India. So expenditure is claimed in Indian assessment, and any amount paid outside for offense is claimed in the India. So they are saying that it is not expressly covered by this. So might be taking that possibility, this clause is added. The second clause is to provide any benefit or perquisites in whatever form to a person, whether or not carrying on a business or exercising a profession, and acceptance of such benefit or perquisite by such person is in violation of any law or rule or regulation or guideline, as the case may be, for the time being in force, governing the conduct of such person. So this particular amendment has been brought in regard to to overrule the judgments by which certain expense gifts and perquisite benefits were given to the doctors in contravention of guidelines of Indian Medical Association. So to cover that, this particular clause has been brought. Like this, other expenses also may be there. So last and third limb of this explanation is to compound an offense under any law for the time being in force in India or outside India. So compounding was another factor. People for compounding companies, moreover corporate assessees, directors are there, corporate offense are there. So there are so many provisions in the respective acts to compound those offenses, and heavy amount is paid for that. So compounding of an offense, whether come within the category of disallowance or not, was a very live question. So to cover any difficulty in interpreting that provision, they have added that compounding amount, by whatever name it is called, is also falling under the disallowance mistake. So whether it is India or outside India, again there is a limitation. So outside India, any compounding fees paid is also added. So this is particularly regarding disallowance to be made under subsection 1 of 37, and explanation is added. And moreover, this is made applicable from 1st April 2005. So question arises that whether it will be retrospectively construed or what is the position. So I can refer to the latest decision of Honorable Supreme Court, which is MM Aqua Technology Limited versus CIT, 129 taxman.com 145. This is the decision where they were considering similar type of amendment, which is also part of now the Finance Act, that is 43B, disallowance of interest. So their lordships have said, Supreme Court, that the term removal removal of doubts does not take it retrospectively. So this is a very good point to fight out that it should not be applied to the cases which have already in dispute or something, and it will be argued that this should not be taken retrospectively. And I think that this is a arguable case, and it can be said that this should not be added retrospectively. Now coming to the section 158AA, 158BA, AB. So earlier the same section was there for repetitive appeal, that was 158AA subsection 1. So what is the difference between these two? The subsection 1 of 158AA was applicable only to the case, limited to the case of the assessee, to avoid repetitive appeals. Now they have added the other person also, other person. If similar question of law is pending before disposal, and that applicability is also restricted to if assessee give acceptance if assessee does not give acceptance to this proposal of the department, then department has to file appeal. There is no other alternative for that. So this provision has been brought to decrease the quantums of appeal to be filed, so that unnecessary litigation is not increased. With this, I am and one thing more. This is regarding collegium. That collegium will be of at least 2 principal commissioners or commissioners. That will decide that whether AO should forego appeal and adopt a procedure defined in this section 158 AB. So this is all about that. Now I hand over the mic to the moderator. Thank you very much. Anybody there? Sunil ji?
Jyotika, please continue.
Sunil ji,
Sir, yes, sir. It's a panel discussion. You all can discuss, or anyone can take up the issue or start with the other one, because it's a discussion.
So now,
So if anyone wants to add something, there is anyone.
Asimji, do you want to add something?
Well, thank you, Garg Sahab, and thank you, Shrutika. First and foremost, my gratitude to the Direct Tax Committee for this opportunity. Chitle Sahab, as well as Mr. Raj Chawla, it's very good being this virtual rostrum with all the luminaries, Mr. Agarwal, Garg Sahab, yourselves, as well as very distinguished Bansal Sahab. Just to sort of bring up speed, I think the bill has received the presidential assent on March 31st, 2022. So to that extent, I would just add that little clarification, and amendments have been which were placed by the Honorable Finance Minister before the Lok Sabha to begin with, and then were carried before the Rajya Sabha, and now pretty much it is enacted, and therefore it all the 38, 39 odd amendments do see the light of the day. Of course, Mr. Raj Agarwal Sahab would certainly take up the very keenly talked about concept of updated return. But coming back to Garg Sahab, the intervention on the deliberations of Bansal Sahab, I think very recently we also had the Supreme Court decision which dealt with the issues of the freebies given in the case of pharmaceutical companies. I think it's a very leading judgment pronounced by my Lords Justice Bhatt of the quorum of Justice Lalit and Justice Bhatt, which also looks at this issue and gives certainly it produced prior years, but I think is worth reading, and I would rather urge all the delegates present here to certainly take note of that particular judgment. So that was my little intervention on the discussion of Bansal Saab. I don't know whether the 14A is going to further complicate the matters, or it will put to rest the fact that 14A generated so much of undesirable litigation, including the constitution of the Justice Ishwar Committee to give recommendations, and finally, hopefully, this will all see the 14A litigation. I hope with this does not get precipitated, because lately what we've seen, the the amendments to the Act and further amendments to the amendments to the Act in terms of amendments to Finance Bill, at least in the last 3 years, have done more rather than alleviating the situation, has caused more confusion and has resulted in rather adding more to the ambiguity with regard to the legislative drafting process. So instead of alleviating the cause of providing clarifications, it has further, at least that has been my sense in the last 2-3 years. You look at the way equalization levy 2.0 was introduced, and of course that's not subject matter of today's discussion. We were hoping that few amendments or let's say some clarity or kuch light padti at least on some of the provisions where a lot of post-budget recommendations were given, and I'm sure even our revered committee and other chambers would have done that, but nothing. In fact, these 39 amendments which have come rather further in some cases might just confuse the whole up issue. In fact, there are some which I'm sure distinguished Rajsa would also take up while dealing with the issue of updated returns. There are a couple of amendments which were made to the finance bill as it was laid before the House on, I think, 23rd of March. So that's a very limited intervention. That Supreme Court decision is must read, very eloquently authored by Justice Bhatt. Yeah, good reading. So over to you. Yeah. Shrutika, what's the seritum? At least we should know who's going to chip in next. So you can tell us without breaking the chain of thought and deliberation.
Sir, actually everyone has taken the area of their interest, but because it is a panel discussion now, so you all can have the discussion in between, or if you want to add on, if you want to have any query, you can discuss. Otherwise, after Aseem sir, Sunil sir will take up.
Okay, so I think we should request Garg Saab then to lead the discussion on his given topic, and then all of us could chip in. Yeah. Sunil Saab, over to you.
Sir, you can continue with your topic, please. Simji, you can continue with your topic. What you are...
No, that's fine. Let's go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you, Aseem.
I'll get an opportunity to hear you and Raj Saab first, no?
My pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
After Bansal Saab. Over to you.
So, thank you, President of Direct Tax Committee, Chirale Saab, and Vice Chairman, Hidaj Chawla ji, and my dear co-panelist, my elder, Shri I.P. Bansal ji, Shri Raj Agrawal ji, and of course, Aseem bhai. Of course, we are doing a lot of webinars the last 1.5 years, and professional colleagues. So friends, this budget and this Finance Bill 2022, which is now an act, we have seen a lot of changes in the charitable trust. And you might have seen that in the memorandum explaining the budget provisions, Honorable Madam Finance Minister has dedicated almost 25 pages quarter to that memorandum on the charitable trust. In the last 2-3 finance bills, there has been a lot of stress on the changes to be made in the working implementations and assessment and taxation of the charitable trust. So this topic has become very important, and this Finance Bill 2022 virtually has overhauled the whole era of taxation of charitable trust. As you know, there are two kinds of regime. One is, of course, Section 11, 12, 13, and another is 1023C, and this budget has now brought in both the regime at par. Before discussing the amendments made by Finance Bill 2022, let me have an overview what the scheme of Section 11, 12, and 13. As you know, Section 11, 1 says, subject to the provision of Section 60 to 63, income from the property held for only charitable purpose or religious purpose will not be included in the total income of the person in receipt of it. And 11.1 says that the accumulation should not be more than 15%. 11.1b and 11.1c is about the trust which has been incorporated before the commencement of this act, and 11.1c are working internationally. And there is a very important section 11.1d, that the corpus donation received by a charitable trust will not be the income of the trust, will not be deemed to be the income of the trust. And of course, in Finance Act 2021, there was a change in 11.1d to the extent that what they have said, that the corpus fund are now to be invested in the specified mode given under section 11.5. And secondly, what have they said? That if you are spending anything out of the corpus fund, we will not give you the application for that particular amount. But in the next year, if you spend out of the voluntary contribution and refill that corpus, you can get the application. That was an amendment by Finance Act 21. And there are five explanations. There were five explanations to section 11.1. And this year, a sixth explanation has also been added. And explanation 2 to that 11.1 says that if you could not spend 85% as mandated by 11.1, then you can take the deemed application by filing Form 9. And in Finance Act 21, two more explanations were added, and that was regarding that no set of carry forward of losses will be given to you even after the decision of Honorable Supreme Court of India in case of Sucrose International. This amendment was brought in, and this Finance Act 22 has added one more explanation, and that says now the application that will be allowed only on the cash basis, on the payment basis, actually paid basis. Meaning that now whether you are maintaining the books of accounts as accrual basis, but your application, that will be on the basis of the cash flow. And section 11.2 gives you another mode of accumulation. If you want to accumulate the funds of the charitable trust, then you can accumulate, if the accumulation for 5 years, and mandatorily you are to accumulate the funds in the mode specified in section 11.5. But 11.2 has to be read with section 11.3, that if there is any violation, either you have spent out of that funds, or the fund ceases to be invested in 11.5 mode, or you could not spend the fund even after the expiry of 5 years, then it will be deemed to be the income. In the first 3 cases, it will be the income of the year when the violation occurs, and the last mode, if you could not spend the amount within 5 years, then of course in the 6th year it would be taxable. 11.4a says the provision of section 11.1, 2 and 3 will not be applicable if the business carried out by the trust is not incidental to the main object. Now, and as you know, in Finance Act 2020, we were supposed, and there was a mandate that every trustor has to get its re-registered, or you will get the provisional registration. That was brought in by Finance Act 2020. And section 13.1, that gives the situations when benefit of section 11 will not be available to you. So this is the basic scheme of section 11, 12 and 13. But this Finance Act, now they have, now coming to the amendment made by this Finance Act 2022, Honorable Finance Minister, while presenting the budget, what they have proposed, they have proposed 3 broad areas of amendment. The first is ensuring the effective monitoring and implementation. And second was bringing consistency in the two exemption regime. Two exemption regime means 11, 12, 13 and 10, 23C. दोनों में जहां भी इम्पैरिटी थी, जहां भी चेंजेस थे, जहां भी डिफरेंसेस थे, क्योंकि 1023C में काफी चेंजेस थे एट पार विद सेक्शन 11, 12, 13. And third was the providing clarity on the taxation in certain situations, and that's very important. The first amendments, as you know, this Finance Act 22 has made so many overhauling changes in every section, subsections, explanations. And in the first part, that is ensuring the effective monitoring and implementation, what they have proposed now, and this is most important. And the first change is by this Finance Act that now mandatorily you have to maintain the books of account. As you know, there is a provision section 44AA where the maintenance of books of accounts are there. Provision for maintaining the books of accounts are there, but no such provisions were there in 11, 12 and 13. Now you have to mandatorily maintain the books of accounts, number one. And number two, change is, as you know, in 13.1C or 13.1D, if any unreasonable benefit is given to the interested parties or any asset is applied to the interested parties, then provision of section 11 does not apply. Always there was a ambiguity, sir, कि अगर 13.1C में हम चले गए तो क्या पूरा सेक्शन 11 का एप्लीकेशन नहीं मिलेगा, एग्जामिशन नहीं मिलेगा. अब they have tried to clarify the position. But to clarify this position, Raj sir, what they have done in this budget, number one, they have proposed a penalty under section 271 AAE. And the penalty is, for the first time violation, it is 100%, and for the consecutive violation, it is 200%. They have done two things. One, if you are passing any unreasonable benefit to the interested party and the interested parties are given in section 13.3, then first you will have to have the penalty, and secondly, that portion of income which is unreasonable, that will be taxed at MMR, at special rate under sections 115 DBI. So that is the second amendment. And third amendment is in case of reference to the PCIT. As you know, 1023C was an approval, while section 12A AA, now it's 12AV, is a registration. And under section 143.3, there was a provision that assessing officer can refer to the PCIT about cancellation of the approval of the trust under section 1023C. But no specified time limit was given. And now what they have proposed, that when a reference has been received from the assessing officer, the PCIT has to take a call within 6 months from the end of the quarter when this reference has been given to him. And the last, and that is very important, that power of revocation. The power of revocation under section 12 capital AB4. Now this section has been overhauled. Ample power has been given to the PCIT to revoke the registration of the trust. And the reason what they have given, that they have said that because we are giving automatic registration to the trust, so that's why we are giving ample power to to cancel the registration. And now the PCIT has the power, if any of the specific violation, sir, अगर कोई भी specific violation हो गया, he has the power to revoke the cancellation registration. And what are those specific violations? That's very interesting to see, Asim ji. Number one, if the income has been applied other than the object of the trust, अगर आपने इनकम को ऑब्जेक्ट के अलावा कहीं खर्च कर दिया, तब बहुत सारी ट्रस्ट में हम क्या करते हैं, जो एक्युमुलेटेड पोर्शन होता है, मतलब there are two kinds of accumulation. One is 15% accumulation, another is, of course, in 11.5. 11.5 में तो स्पेसिफाइड है, लेकिन जो 15% का accumulated पोर्शन है, अगर आपने उसको भी ऑब्जेक्ट के अलावा खर्च कर दिया सर, it will be a part of specific violation. Your registration can be cancelled.
Yeah.
And secondly, Rasa, second is very important. What they have said now, specific violation will also include if any activity is carried out which is not incidental to the main object.
Yeah.
One,
This is
आपको ऑब्जेक्ट में पैसा लगाना है, वेदर एप्लीकेशन, अगर आप एप्लीकेशन ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं करते हैं 85%, तो आपको ऑफकोर्स ही नहीं मिलता था. एक्यूमुलेटेड फंड्स को भी आपको इंसिडेंटल टू मेन ऑब्जेक्ट में लगाना है. सेकेंडली, द एक्टिविटी शुड बी इंसिडेंटल टू मेन ऑब्जेक्ट. If it is not incidental to main object, then it will be a specific violation.
yeah.
For example, suppose there is a hospital and they are carrying out a pharma company. Whether we can say it is incidental to main object.
Yeah,
Or some
laundry,
educational
pharma.
institution giving its auditorium for some Bollywood night. Is it incidental to main object? No. Now we have to, earlier 12AB, जो पहले 12AB4 था, उसमें स्पेसिफिक प्रोविजंस थे कि एक्टिविटी इज नॉट जेन्युइन, और आपने कोई वायलेशन कर दिया, स्पेसिफिक वायलेशन, जो आपने कोई वायलेशन कर दिया लॉ का, या आपने जो उसके लॉज हैं जो उस ट्रस्ट को चला रहे हैं, या लॉ ऑफ द लैंड का वायलेशन किया, या आपने प्राइवेट रिलीजियस कम्युनिटी को या कुछ प्राइवेट रिलीजियस पर्पज के लिए या किसी कम्युनिटी के लिए पैसा खर्च किया, तो देयर वाज सम लिमिटेड ऑप्शंस वर देयर फॉर स्पेसिफिक वायलेशन. बट नाउ दिस सेक्शन ऑफ 12AB4 बहुत वाइडली उन्होंने कहा है. Third is, even if the business is incidental to the main object, आप ऑब्जेक्ट में पैसा नहीं खर्च कर रहे हैं, अप्लाई नहीं कर रहे हैं. सेकेंडली, आप इंसिडेंटल टू मेन ऑब्जेक्ट में नहीं कर रहे हैं, और अगर इंसिडेंटल टू मेन ऑब्जेक्ट भी है, इवन देन इफ द सेपरेट बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स आर नॉट मेंटेन, it is a case of specific violation. See the gravity of the situation. And of course, जो पहले conditions थी, existing conditions, the activity are not genuine, or it should be, if any activity is carried out of the ultra virus to the conditions on which the trust was registered, or private religious purpose, or for some specific caste or community, or any violation of law, then it will be a case of specific violation and your registration can be cancelled. So this is the first change, first set of changes. What they have said, ensuring their effective control and management. Second set of changes is about bringing consistency in the provision of two regime. तो 1023C में भी मैं कहता हूं 3 पार्ट है राज जी. पहला पार्ट है जहां फुल्ली एग्जम्प्ट इनकम है 1023C 3AB में, जो गवर्नमेंट फंडेड इंस्टीट्यूशन है. सेकंड पार्ट है 1023C 3AD या 3AE में, जहां अप टू 5 crore फॉर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन और अ मेडिकल इंस्टीट्यूशन. नाउ नो रजिस्ट्रेशन इज रिक्वायर्ड टू यू. अगर आप पहले 1 crore था, 5 crore तक है. But 1023C 4, 5, 6, 6A, there were so many provisions. Section 13 were not applicable to them. Form 10 was not applicable to them for accumulation. And उसके अलावा बहुत सारे provisions थे जहां पर consistency नहीं थी. 115 TD was not applicable. अब 115 TD has been made applicable to the trust of funds under section 1023C. जितने भी प्रोविजन 11, 12, 13 के थे, नाउ दे आर बीइंग एट पार विद सेक्शन 11, 12 and 13. And now mandatorily you have to file the return of income even in case of 1023C. And the last set of changes is providing clarity. And this is very important.
Okay, no?
होता क्या था, if there is a violation of section 13(1), assessing officer tend to tax the whole income, or any other, even recently what we have seen, if you have not filed return of income in the due date or 10B has not been filed, what they are doing, they are charging tax on the whole of the receipts. Now they have provided clarity and they have introduced a new section 115 BBI where a specific rate of tax at the rate of 30% will be applicable, and in other situations जहां पर टैक्स स्लैब रेट पर लगेगा. तो क्लैरिटी दे दी कि कहां पर टैक्स स्लैब रेट पर लगेगा और कहां पर आपको स्पेसिफिक इनकम मानकर 115 बीबीआई में टैक्स देना होगा. फर्स्ट सिचुएशन इज जहां स्लैब रेट पे आपको टैक्स लग रहा है if the commercial receipts are more than 20%. As you know, in the seventh link of section 2 clause 15, charitable purpose, advancement of any other object of general public utility, but they have said now if the income is there, you will be charged at slab rate. Second, if books of accounts are not audited or return is not filed. These are the three situations when tax will be charged at the normal rates. And if there is a violation, then they have provided the formula how to calculate the income. आपको टोटल रिसीट पर टैक्स नहीं लगेगा, बट दे हैव सेड कि ठीक है जी, आप इनकम माइनस एक्सपेंडिचर कर लीजिए, लेकिन एनी एक्सपेंडिचर आउट ऑफ द कॉर्पस विल नॉट बी अलाउड. अगर आपने कॉर्पस का खर्चा किया उसको अलाउ नहीं करेंगे, कोई लॉस आपका एडजस्ट नहीं करेंगे, but the tax will be at the normal rate. And in the three situations, it will be at the special rate under section 115 BBI. If any unreasonable benefit has been passed to the trustees or the interested parties, or if the funds are not invested in the specified mode in 11.5, and if there is a deemed income in section 11.3. As you know, if you have accumulated funds in 11.2 and if there is a violation, then it was deemed to be the income. And another change is that if you have not spent the fund within the expiry of 5 years, earlier it was taxed in the 6th year, now they have said that it will be taxed in the 5th year itself. So these are the changes by this Amendment Act 2022. And now I will request another panelist to add.
Sunilji, one intervention. Your prowess on the taxation of charitable trust is of the highest order, and I am speaking out of turn, but I think the committee should be encouraged to request you to come up with a small handbook which would assist. But if I don't hold that brief, and but I'm sure I'm tempted enough to say that I have not followed the ITPO decision at the Supreme Court. Last I knew about a couple of weeks back that the hearing was going on. And of course, that's batch matters. And I maybe Rajji's illustrious chamber would have a better idea if they are part of those batch of appeals before Supreme Court, which is pursued by the revenue against the very landmark judgment of Delhi High Court in ITPO case. I think it was argued by Siali Saab, and then even Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has a leading judgment on that count on the activities carried out incidental to the main activity, and then you have the decisions of BCCI and various regional bodies of BCCI, etc. So I think ITPO's judgment again would be a useful consideration to understand the whole 11.5 and 11.5A. Of course, as I said, law keeps on amending and things move on. I wish I had a better update on that matter. Up until 2 weeks back, I think it was being heard by the Supreme Court. So that's my only limited intervention. My experience of doing similar matters at the tribunal level is the fact that it's the threshold after the amendment is so high, as you rightly said, that a hospital doing a pharma company, or giving similar example, what if a hospital is running a laundry, they clean your own linen or something, or you're running a Kalyam Mandap, as you said, charitable institutions have leased out places for these occasions, how would they pan out, I had the opportunity to argue a couple of matters, where charitable institutions were publishing newspapers, and it was held that no, carrying out newspaper is for profit activity. Of course, you were fortunate enough to succeed before the tribunal, but I think you made very, very vital observations. So these are only my little interventions. This subject all in itself is so complex. I think only you would have done justice to it.
Yes, Sunilji. So far as this aspect is concerned, that what is incidental to the main objective, it has been very controversial. There have been so interesting issues. I remember that in the case of DDCA, the issue was that when you are participating in IPL and the kind of flavor which is there in IPL, whether you can say that this is incidental to the main objective. I mean, whether it is for the promotion of the sports of cricket only. The kind of fun and fair, the kind of glamour which is there in IPL, that influenced the department to take a view that it is in the nature of commercial activity. So there is a maybe very thin line sometimes that whether the activity being undertaken is in the nature of incidental to the main objective or it is not there. Like pharma company, hospital running pharma company. If hospital is running a pharmacy, it is incidental to the main objective. But of course, it is running a pharma company altogether different. And the medicines are sold to outside parties. Then of course it cannot be said that it is incidental to the main objective. So there may be very interesting issues which may in future also crop in, that how to distinguish whether it is incidental to the main objective or it is not. It is in the nature of purely commercial activity. Another point, Sunilji, that in this budget probably. There is a change regarding the application of income. There used to be a lot of dispute that how this is to be calculated. Earlier, prior to amendment in 2012, when depreciation, they said that will not be allowed when application in fixed assets is being taken as application. Even when you are maintaining the books of accounts on accrual basis, then application is to be calculated in what manner. That controversy was always there. There may be certain non-cash expenses other than depreciation which may still be there. There may be certain payables which may be there. So whether this can be said to be application of 85%. So in this budget they have made a change. You can discuss that also, Sunilji, that the application will have to be now considered on cash basis. So if you are maintaining books of accounts on mercantile basis, then there may be increase and decrease in payables or receivables. That adjustment has to be made apart from the adjustment of the loans, etc., which you have taken. Only then, I mean, you will have to convert it that on cash basis. That what is the actual outflow of the funds. Only that will be regarded to be the application of funds. So you can further elaborate, Sunilji, if you want to add something.
ठीक है सर.
Now by these amendments, amendments which have been brought to at par both the regimes, as Sunilji said, Section 11 and Section 1023C, etc. So non-compliance of any of the condition will lead to cancellation immediately because vast powers have been given. So everybody has to see the minutely all the conditions are fulfilled. Maintenance of separate set of books of account for that is also so compliance will be more important with these conditions, and a lot of litigation will rise and lot of cancellations will be done on this way because earlier the persons are used to these institutions are used to the old regimes. So 1023C was having less obligation, very less obligation. Now all those obligations have been increased compliance. So Sunilji, throw some light on it also.
हाँ सर, देखिए जो राजी आपने पॉइंट उठाया है ना वो बहुत वैलिड है. सुब्रोस इंटरनेशनल में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा था कि इफ द एक्सपेंडिचर आर मोर देन द रिसीट्स तो हम आपको कैरी फॉरवर्ड दे देंगे. रीजन बीइंग दैट कि ठीक है जी, अगर आपने 1 करोड़ की रिसीट से 1.5 करोड़ खर्चा कर दिया तो 50 लाख को आपको कैरी फॉरवर्ड मिलना चाहिए. बट व्हाट दे आर सेइंग नाउ, वो कहते हैं कि सर देखिए हमने कॉर्पस से आप खर्चा करेंगे, वी आर नॉट गिविंग यू एप्लीकेशन. एक बात. आप बोरोड फंड से खर्चा कर रहे हैं, हमने आपसे कह दिया कि आप नेट ऑफ बोरोड फंड को ही हम आपको देंगे एक्सपेंडिचर, जब उसका रीपेमेंट कर रहे हैं तो हम आपको उसकी रीपेमेंट दे रहे हैं। एंड थर्ड वाज पेबल्स, थर्ड एरिया वाज पेबल। भाई आपने लोन लेके खर्चा किया, हमने उसको लोन को एप्लीकेशन नहीं दिया, आपको रीपेमेंट का टाइम दिया, कॉर्पस का नहीं दिया। थर्ड वाज पेबल, दैट वाज क्रिएटिंग ए डिफरेंस। तो इस बार कह दिया कि अगर आपने पेबल्स खड़ा किया है तो एक्चुअल पेमेंट बेस पे देंगे। मतलब हुआ कि 100 रुपए आपको मिलेगा तो आप 100 ज्यादा खर्च ही नहीं कर सकते। तो इसीलिए उन्होंने कहा था लास्ट ईयर बजट में फाइनेंस एक्ट 21 में कि हम आपको सेट ऑफ और कैरी फॉरवर्ड लॉस नहीं देंगे, क्योंकि आपको लॉस होगा ही नहीं है कैश फ्लो में। तो एक बात तो ये कह दी। लेकिन अभी जो आपने बहुत वैलिड पॉइंट उठाया था सर, वो उठाया था 11/6 को लेके। एक डिसीजन था राजस्थानी गुजराती समाज का, उसमें कहा था सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया ने कि भाई आपने कहा मना कर रखा है कि आपको डेप्रिसिएशन नहीं मिलेगा। लोग एप्लीकेशन लेते थे कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर की, 11(1) इज वेरी वाइड, और डेप्रिसिएशन भी लिया करते थे कि बुक्स वर मेंटेन ऑन मर्केंटाइल बेसिस। तो 11(6) में ये कहा था कि इफ यू हैव टेकन द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर तो डेप्रिसिएशन विल नॉट बी अलाउड, बट इफ यू हैव नॉट टेकन द कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर एप्लीकेशन देन वी विल गिव यू डेप्रिसिएशन। अब सिचुएशन वही आएगी सर कि इफ यू हैव नॉट टेकन द कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर एज एप्लीकेशन देन ऑफ कोर्स यू विल बी गिवन डेप्रिसिएशन. You will be allowed depreciation as per 11(6). And suppose if you have spent all the amount in the year 1 and still getting the depreciation, then again there will be a loss. The government has not given the clarification कि अगर आपने 1 करोड़ का 1 करोड़ खर्चा कर दिया और डेप्रिसिएशन का मुझको बेनिफिट मिलना था, उस लॉस का मैं क्या करूंगा? Still there is an ambiguity again. और सेकेंड एम्बिग्यूटी रास्ता ये है कि अगर ये सारे स्पेसिफिक वैल्यू, क्योंकि देयर इज अ वेरी थिन लाइन एज असीम जी सेड कि व्हेन यू आर उस लक्ष्मण रेखा को व्हेन यू आर क्रॉसिंग दैट लक्ष्मण रेखा, यू नेवर नो कि आपने कब इंसिडेंटल टू मैनेजमेंट में काम नहीं किया। तो क्या कैंसिलेशन जब होगा, रिवोकेशन जब होगा, तो क्या 115 टीडी में चले जाएंगे हम? द होल ऑफ द फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू विल बी टैक्स्ड अंडर सेक्शन 115 टीडी. एंड वन मोर थिंग सर, टू दिस लर्नड पैनल, अभी भी 11 जो 7th लिंब है, एडवांसमेंट ऑफ एनी अदर ऑब्जेक्ट ऑफ जनरल पब्लिक यूटिलिटी, वहां पे 20% कैपिटल इफ द कमर्शियल डिसीज इज मोर देन 20% देन इट इज टैक्स. बट 1023C में उसको चैरिटेबल पर्पज के 7th लिंब को अलग नहीं किया गया अभी भी. तो दीज आर सर्टेन इश्यूज स्टिल टू बी आंसर्ड बाय द गवर्नमेंट कि व्हाट विल हैपन इन दिस सिचुएशन सर. दिस इज माय सबमिशन, हम्बल सबमिशन.
Sunil, so far as the issue of depreciation is concerned, because there can be situation when corpus fund has been received and out of the corpus fund capital asset has been created. That is not application because corpus is not taken to your income. Then
Yes,
how the depreciation of such a asset may be allowed to you? It cannot be allowed because that cannot be treated as application, because when there is a corpus received and out of which application fixed assets has been made, then if you claim depreciation in P&L account on mercantile basis, you will claim depreciation in your books of accounts. But that depreciation cannot be said to be the application out of the revenue receipts. So to my mind, after this amendment and after this clarification, when application has to be seen, what is the cash outflow? It is for the assessee to claim when there is a cash outflow other than corpus fund for the purpose of application in fixed assets, to claim it as application. Otherwise, to claim depreciation as application for the reason that earlier the application in assets was not claimed for some other reason, I think this plea may be weak plea.
नहीं सर, मैं कुछ और बात कह रहा हूँ राजी. मैं कह रहा हूँ आपने ईयर 1 में आपको 1 करोड़ आया, आपने 85 लाख का रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर किया, 15 रुपए का आपने कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर किया. ईयर 2 में आपको 1 करोड़ रुपए आया, आपने 1 करोड़ का रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर कर दिया, लेकिन आपको 15 रुपए का डेप्रिसिएशन तो मिलना चाहिए ना. आप तो
But
उसको चुके हो.
that is right, but to distinguish or to earmark that which 15 has been invested, which 15 has not been invested in which particular asset, it may not be practically possible.
एंड इवन जो 11(6) है, दैट डजंट से कि अगर 11(6) कहता है आपने एक्सपेंडिचर कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर क्लेम नहीं किया तो डेप्रिसिएशन नहीं देंगे, लेकिन आपने कॉर्पस से अगर एसेट क्रिएट की है तो उसमें भी वो सेक्शन इज म्यूट.
That is right, but point is that there is no cash outflow. Then probably for non-cash expenses, if debited to P&L account, probably now under the new regime, keeping in view the overall scheme of the things, this may not be treated as application, to my opinion.
Yes, sir. This is the intention of the government, but they have missed it while drafting the law. They have missed these 2 points, sir, to my humble opinion, sir.
Moreover, audit has also been prescribed, because earlier there was again confusion whether charitable trusts are required to be audited or not under Section 44 AB because they are not doing business. But now they have said that if the income is taxable, crossing the taxable limit, then audit is mandatorily required to be done for all the such NGO charitable institutions.
If you are following in the section for 1114A and the activity is not incidental to main object, or 11.4, when there is a activity, business undertaking has been run by a charitable trust, then of course you have to go for the audit. और आज आपको याद होगा 2 साल पहले what they have done, एक वो ड्राफ्ट 10B फॉर्म लेकर आए थे, पता नहीं किस कारण से उन्होंने उसको वापस ले लिया. अभी जो 10B है उसका बड़ा एलोबरेट रूप में लाए थे उसको, और पर उसमें ये सारी बातें बताई थी कि आपको कहाँ टैक्स ऑडिट की जरूरत भी होगी. मतलब यू हैव टू गेट 44AB ऑडिट एज वेल एज 10B ऑडिट रिपोर्ट, बोथ द रिपोर्ट्स, बट दे हैव नॉट प्रिस्क्राइब्ड इट.
Now the point of unreasonable benefit. If any unreasonable benefit has been given, there are several consequences. One is imposition of tax, then on the institution, on the trust, then imposition of penalty. Then what would be the treatment in the hands of the recipient?
Yes.
That clarity is not there. So what your opinion about it?
देखिए सर, जो अमेंडेड प्रोविजन हम पढ़ते हैं, उस अमेंडेड प्रोविजन को पढ़ोगे तो उसमें लिखा हुआ है कि इट विल बी टैक्स इन द हैंड ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट. लेकिन उसको टैक्स करने का तो लॉजिक ही कुछ नहीं है. अगर आप अमेंडेड प्रोविजन को पढ़ते हैं तो लैंग्वेज इज लाइक दैट कि इट इज गोइंग टू बी टैक्स, वी आर गोइंग टू बी टैक्स्ड इन द हैंड ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट, बट ऑफ कोर्स इट हैज टू बी टैक्स इन द हैंड ऑफ द ट्रस्ट. बट द मोस्ट इंपोर्टेंट पॉइंट इज सेक्शन 271AA सर. वहां पर ये नहीं बताया कि पेनल्टी अनरीजनेबल पार्ट पे लगाएंगे या टोटल पार्ट पे लगाएंगे. अगेन देयर इज अ कंफ्यूजन. अब ये डिसाइड कैसे करेंगे हम कि 11, ये तो कह रहा है कि 13.2 विल बी एप्लीकेबल सब्जेक्ट टू द प्रोविजन 13.2, जहां पर कहा है कि यू कैन गिव द एट आर्म्स लेंथ प्राइस यू कैन गिव द. लेकिन पेनल्टी प्रोविजन में ये नहीं बताया कि व्हाट इज टू व्हाट एक्सटेंट इट विल बी लेविड.
Because tax will be imposed only on the unreasonable part, the part so penalty should also be on that part only.
But the language of the section, what
I
they
am
have
of the opinion, sir. I am of the opinion that it will be levied on the whole amount.
But the language of the language of section 271AA is something
you cannot segregate it when it is exceeded the limitation. You cannot segregate that this is reasonable and you can impose penalty upon that, or this is not reasonable. So you can do like that. It is my humble opinion.
But if tax is being imposed only on unreasonable part, not on the whole amount,
that will be determined. That will be determined. But penalty part.
अगर ट्रस्टीज को 1 करोड़ का बेनिफिट दिया, सैलरी दी, रेंट दिया, इंटरेस्ट दिया, और रीजनेबल मान लो आर्म्स लेंथ प्राइस 75 लाख है, तो मतलब हुआ कि 25 लाख पे तो आप स्पेशल रेट ऑफ टैक्स लगा रहे हैं और पेनल्टी प्रोविजन 1 करोड़ पर लगा रहे हैं, और अगले साल करोगे तो 2 करोड़ पे पेनल्टी लग जाएगी.
To my mind, this is not because when it is linked with the 100%, 200% of the tax, then the amount of tax which is being imposed, penalty should be with respect to that only.
Yes.
If it is not specified that the penalty will be levied only on the unreasonable part, then the interpretation would be that if there is a violation, the whole of the amount will fall for penalty.
Asimji, what is your opinion?
Rajji, again, with regard to levy of penalty, I would want to revisit whether 273B doctrine of reasonable cause will provide that shelter. That would be my answer with regard to it. If it is subject to 273 capital B, then the whole doctrine of reasonable
there is no
cause
question of.
Yeah, and then we have got those 2 leading decisions of Delhi High Court, Woodward Governors and Azadi Bachao Andolan of Business Society, Yeah, that would be. But then the apportionment thing, what Bansal Saab said, is very interesting. I mean, how would that function? I mean, Bansal Saab, इस पे थोड़ा और रोशनी डालिए. अब ये पेनल्टी की स्लाइसिंग और डाइसिंग कैसे होगी?
तो वही, दैट्स व्हाट मैं वही तो कह रहा हूँ भी, इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट दैट दिस पोर्शन इज रीजनेबल, दिस पोर्शन इज अनरीजनेबल, देन इट विल बिकम डिबेटेबल अगेन.
Yes.
And on debatable point of law, there is no penalty leviable.
Then if there are two views, or whether you apply the Reliance Petro doctrine, or you
Yes.
say that if there is a benefit of doubt, apply vegetable.
Even that, even the Delhi High Court has said, Justice Sikri,
Yes.
that even if question of law is admitted, tribunal has
Yes.
upheld the decision. Question of law is admitted, no penalties leviable.
अब राज जी ने हमारे से तो व्यू हमारा जान लिया दोनों से, उनका क्या व्यू है ये पूछते हैं अब.
नहीं, मैंने तो पहले ही अपना व्यू बताया था, क्योंकि आई फील दैट द पार्ट ऑन विच टैक्स इज बीइंग इम्पोज्ड, penalty can be only with respect to that part only.
Yes.
If tax is being if tax will go, penalty will automatically
Sir,
go.
that is very clear. If amount is determined,
if something is
amount
not
is determined for the tax purposes, which is
sorry, let me complete. If there is no unreasonable portion, then tax will also go. Then penalty will also go. But if tax remains, means there remains unreasonable portion, then only the question of penalty will arise. And in that case, the penalty should be only with reference to that part on which tax is being imposed. Either tax is imposed on the entire part, then I can understand. But if tax is not being imposed on the entire part, as already provided, it is only on the unreasonable part which has been given, then penalty can be only with reference to that. This is my view.
Sir, this is penalty provision, and violation is there. Violation is there. Violation is not with limited to that. Only the tax is limited. Tax rate is different for that. But a violation, when violation is there, penalty is for violation. You have exceeded the limit. That is my opinion.
जो बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है वो ये है कि अगर रिवोकेशन होता है, कैंसिलेशन होता है ट्रस्ट का 12 कैपिटल AB 4 पे, तो क्या होगा? वेदर 115 TD will be attracted, or tax will be levied at normal rate or at special rate. This is also a gray area. अगर 115 TD लगाने चला गया वो, क्योंकि वो भी बड़ा कंफ्यूजिंग है. और जितनी वायलेशन बताई हैं, अब देखिए एक वायलेशन जो लास्ट में दे रखी है, वो क्या कहता है? द ट्रस्ट हैज नॉट कंप्लाइड विद एनी लॉ फॉर द टाइमिंग इन फोर्स बाय द ट्रस्ट एज मटेरियल फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ अचीविंग द ऑब्जेक्ट. सर, एक कॉलेज चल रहा है, उसने PF एक्ट की वायलेशन कर दी, CBDT की वायलेशन, CBI की उसकी कर दी, सेंट्रल बोर्ड ऑफ स्कूल सेकेंडरी CBSE की, या AICT की वायलेशन रोज होती है इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज में, रोज वो नोटिस देते रहते हैं, रोज उसकी अपील चलती रहती है. तो क्या होगा अगर रिवोकेशन होता है? तो क्या 115 TD में जाएंगे, या नॉर्मल रेट, भाई जैसे पहले तो टैक्स 12AA कैंसिल होता था, टैक्स लगा दिया करते थे, या स्पेशल रेट में जाएंगे 115 BBI में? तो असीम जी और राज जी, प्लीज एलोबरेट इफ यू कैन सर, इफ यू हैव, व्हाट इज योर व्यूज?
सुनील जी, as far as I hope am I audible?
यस सर, यस सर.
ये स्कूल जो AICT की वायलेशंस और CBSE के नोटिस है ना, यू नो, आई से विद लॉट ऑफ humility and with some measure of responsibility, those more often than not are driven by a very extraneous consideration. दो फैमिलीज मिलके एक स्कूल चला रही हैं, वो पता लगता है जी वो CBSE का नोटिस आ जाता है. और AICT का तो सुनील जी आपने बिल्कुल ही ठीक कहा है, सब कॉलेजेस को आए दिन आए रखता है. बट दैट इफ दैट इज द बेसिस ऑन विच इनकम टैक्स अथॉरिटीज आर गोइंग टू मूव फॉरवर्ड, then poor tax charitable institutions should all have an in-house expert who is doing only tax work and not charity. मैं सही बता रहा हूँ आपको.
ठीक है
सर, मैंने याद होगा, मैंने शुरू में ही कह दिया था, जो कंप्लायंस वाला पार्ट इन्होंने बढ़ा दिया है ना जी, ये बड़ा डेंजरस है चैरिटेबल इंस्टीट्यूशंस के लिए. और अगर कंप्लायंस नहीं हुई तो ये प्रोविजन लागू कर दूंगा, और कैंसलेशन की जो पावर दे दी साथ में, ये सारा आर्बिट्रेरी बन गया है सारा प्रोसेस. इतनी सारी कंप्लायंसेस, तो चैरिटेबल वर्क कैसे करेगा कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन? आप कंप्लायंसेस ही नहीं कर पाओगे पूरी की पूरी, सारी की सारी. अगर करते हो तो उसमें कभी रेट ऑफ टैक्स है, कभी उसमें पेनल्टी है, कभी उसमें कैंसलेशन है, कितनी चीजें भुगतोगे उसमें. That
सर मैं
has
यही तो
been.
कह रहा हूँ सर, आपको मेडिकल कॉलेज चलाना है तो एमसीआई गाइडलाइंस हैं, आपको इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज चलाना है तो एआईसीटी गाइडलाइंस हैं, आपको यूनिवर्सिटी चलानी है तो यूजीसी गाइडलाइंस हैं, एंड दे आर द बेसिक इंस्टीट्यूशन which governs your
Yeah,
working.
but Sunilji, I am also been on, I'm current, all, much like you know, we're holding a lot of responsible position on boards of colleges and MBA schools. मैं अपना पर्सनल संज्ञान बता देता हूँ, ना तो ये कंप्लेंट्स डिस्पोज्ड ऑफ होती हैं, ना इस पे कोई रीजनेबल क्लोजर होता है. And this all by itself cannot be the basis of any provocation by tax authorities to cancel it. I'm sure
ठीक है सर.
in any court of law they should not hold good, but then I will defer it to Bansal साहब. नहीं, मैं सही बता रहा हूँ बंसल साहब, this is my considered view, but I don't know how a court of law will deal with it. I think your disposition is far better than amongst all of us.
Arbitrary action can be there. You can admit that arbitrary action by the revenue authority is always there. So what they view taken, that is to be tested in law only, in the court of law only.
I think we should move to other provisions also, sir.
सुनील जी,
That is important.
Raj, yeah.
Raj Agarwal ji and Asim ji.
आपने और कुछ डिस्कस करने हैं प्रोविजंस?
हाँ सर, आ गया. नहीं, मेरा हो गया. नेक्स्ट यू.
ओके.
Raji, you have to take up the mantle of the popular theme of updated returns.
Yes.
And I will only caveat it with one request which I have as a student of law, and all of us are, that why didn't the draftsman made a suitable amendment expanding the scope of revised return? No, astute tax professionals and practitioners like yourselves, Garg Saab, Bansal Saab is playing his second innings, so he is enjoying his second innings, will thrive on the technicalities and comparing revised return with updated return, and somewhere you will get some orders which will run contrary to each other. I mean, simple as that. You wanted to bring a concept, you had revised return in the scheme of the act, उसको enabling करके बढ़ा के ले आते, ये अलग से एक और ले आए हैं. ये बस एक thought था. I know you have lot of insights to add, and your chambers have written some very brilliant articles also on this. So over to you.
Thank you, Asim ji. So far as the concept of updated return is concerned, as Asim ji has just said at the outset, that they have brought this concept independently without extending the concept of revised return. Because now the time limit for filing revised return is very limited, because it is only up to the end of the assessment year. So if the last date of filing the return is for individuals July, for corporates it may be October, or it may be extended beyond that, which generally is done due to the technical difficulties in the software or due to certain other reasons, then hardly assessee gets time of 2-3 months, 4 months for the purpose of filing the revised return. Without extending this time limit to file the revised return, they have brought the concept of filing the updated tax return. And to my mind, probably the reason for bringing the independent provision for this purpose may be that they wanted to collect not only the tax and interest, but some part of penalty also, if you are filing return late. In the case of revised return also, if the time limit has expired, there is a very nominal penalty of rupees 5,000, which is required to a fees, which they call, which is required to be paid. But now for the purpose of updated return, if it is filed within a period of 12 months from the end of the assessment year, then 25% of the tax and interest is required to be paid. And if it is filed after 1 year but before 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, then 50% of the amount of interest and tax is required to be paid as additional tax, we can say, which is to be paid along with filing of the return. The genesis which I feel of bringing this provision may be that they have put in place annual information system. Earlier there used to be Form 26AS where there was limited information regarding the TDS, TCS directory and certain financial transactions of the assessee. But so far as AIS is concerned, and visit the site and see it. So probably now when the AIS has been put in place, they are estimating that there may be a lot of information which may be loaded on this portal regarding the financial transactions of the assessee, but these before issuing notice for the purpose of making reassessment of the assessee, that suo motu you go through, and for that they have taken the period up to 2 years, that you keep on watching your AIS time to time and look into that if there are any transactions which are already in the knowledge of the department and you want to declare the income in your tax return, then you declare it, pay the tax interest and nominal penalty. This is, it is a nominal, because if 148 is issued and after that you are assessed, then the quantum of penalty would be much higher. It may be 100% or 200%, it will be much higher. So here it is only 25% or 50% depending upon the time frame within which you have filed the updated return. So probably I feel that they have tried to create a window. They have tried to create a window. They have tried to create a window for those defaulters who could not declare their income, and now they know that department is aware of the section, that what are the main provision of the section. This is applicable to whom and this is not applicable to whom. First of all,
वो राजी जो सबसेक्शन 8A है ना, उसको आप अच्छे से एक बार एक्सप्लेन करके, और जो अमेंडमेंट्स आई थी फाइनेंस बिल में जिसमें एक 4th प्रोवाइजो ऐड हुआ था, वो भी आप उसका भी संज्ञान कर दें, देन आई थिंक इट विल बी बेनिफिशियल फॉर अस एज वेल एज फॉर द डेलीगेट्स.
हाँ जी. First of all, let us go through the provision which is there, that this return cannot be filed for the purpose of taking any benefit or refund or claim of loss. First of all, this there are 3 things. That if you want, you have already filed a return of loss, you want to file updated return increasing the loss, or you have filed a return of profit, but now you want to update your return by claiming certain deductions or exemptions which will turn into loss, that is not permissible. If you want to claim any kind of refund or benefit, that your tax liability is decreased, it will not be permitted. So updated return is not for the purpose of taking the benefit by the assessee, but it is for the purpose of the benefit of the department, from the point of view that if any income which has not been declared earlier, now you want to declare and pay the taxes, then you can file this return. Secondly, second set of persons who are debarred for the purpose of claiming this benefit of this, taking the benefit of this provision, that in case any search or survey has been initiated and conducted in the case of the assessee, then those assessees are not permitted to file the return of updated return for the assessment year in which search or survey has been conducted and for the preceding 2 years, because you can file only up to 2 years. Therefore, practically such persons are debarred. They cannot do it. But here is an opportunity that for the other persons in the case of search, if there are evidences, maybe undisclosed assets or maybe certain incriminating material, documents, books of accounts, which is pertaining to some other person, then proceedings against that person can also be initiated. So if notice has been issued to such person, then he is debarred. So the original person is debarred from the date when search has been initiated or survey has been conducted. But the other person is debarred from the date when the notice to such person has been issued. So now here is the opportunity that whenever any search or survey is taken place, then if any other person is involved and he comes to know that there are certain incomes which are pertaining to him, which have not been declared by him, he can take benefit of this scheme by filing the updated tax return within the time frame if it is permitted, because he is not debarred till notice is received by him. And generally we have seen it takes long time, maybe 6 months, 1 year or more than that, when the action against the other persons are initiated. So I mean those persons may take the benefit. Then the third category of the persons who are not permitted is that if any assessment or reassessment proceedings have been initiated against such persons, these are pending or completed. Now here a very pertinent question is, or rather confusion is arising, that if the words which have been used, that any proceedings for assessment or reassessment or recomputation or revision of income under this act is pending or has been completed. So of course 148 or 263 proceedings would be covered. But whether in case 143(2) notice has been issued for the purpose of making the scrutiny assessment, such persons would also be debarred from filing the updated return, or those persons will not be debarred. This question is a grey area. If we see the terminology which has been used, because the same terminology is in the case of 148, assessment or reassessment. So therefore, word assessment used here does not mean that 143(2) notice has been issued, then the person may be debarred. When this question was put in some of the informal discussion with the CVDT officials, they said, no, our intention is that if 143(2) notice has been issued, those persons are also not entitled to file the return. But this will still remain a debatable and issue and grey area, whether they may be permitted to or they may not be permitted to file the return. But if assessment has been completed, then of course such persons are not allowed to be take benefit of this scheme. Then another thing is that if any kind of proceedings have been initiated under Benami Act, PMLA Act or Black Money Act, here also the notice should have been issued to the assessee. Till the notice is issued, the communication has been made to the assessee. The word is used if the same has been communicated to the assessee. So unless the communication is there, so it does not mean that the notice should be, in the case of Black Money Act, does not mean that notice should be under Section 10 only. Even if the notice is under Section 8 for the purpose of making the inquiry, probably that is also a communication. So here they have not said that the proceedings have been initiated. Rather, they have said that they have information and information has been communicated. So communication may not be by legal notice of initiating the proceedings. Even prior to that, any inquiry is made where the communication is made that department is in possession of such information. Their intention is to cover those cases also. Again, this may also be a debatable issue. That if only inquiry has been initiated, or like in the case of 148, only 148A notice has been issued. Because now, before reopening, 148A notice is required to be issued. So whether it can be said, because so far as one reassessment or assessment proceedings are concerned, there the language is different. They have said when the proceedings are pending. and proceedings can be pending, assessment and reassessment proceedings can be pending, to my mind, only when 148 notice has been issued. Till 148A notice has been issued and reply is filed by the assessee, order is yet to be passed by the assessing officer, then we cannot say that the reassessment proceedings have been initiated. After issue of 148A notice, assessing officer can very well drop the proceedings, may not initiate reassessment proceedings at all, depending upon the satisfaction as per the reply given or evidences led by the assessee. So I mean, again, this will remain a debatable point. But so far as the Benami, PMLA and Black Money Act and information under section 90 and 90A from the other countries is concerned, which has been received by the assessing officer, then information is in possession and it has been communicated. This is the language which has been used. So now I will see the reasonable interpretation of this terminology, that in any manner communication has been made to the assessing officer, the department is in possession of this information. For that matter, even in AIS, if this information is uploaded, only that can also be a communication to the assessee that information is in possession of the department. So, I mean, again, this will remain a debatable point, and other panelists may also throw light so far as this aspect is concerned, that whether such whether loading of information in AIS can be said to be the communication made to the assessee that information is in possession of the department. Then, apart from this, I mean, this is basically the provision which is there, which has been made in this section for the purpose that these persons are debarred for filing updated return, but other persons which are not covered within the ambit of these categories are entitled to file updated return. And as I said, that other person in the case of search can certainly be a beneficial for this provision to my mind.
राजी, जो कम्युनिकेशन वाला बात था वो that would hold good for BMA, Benami and proceedings, or that communication thing only holds good for exchange of information under section 90 or
for both the provisions. Let me just see, because there is clause C and clause D.
एक बार उसको
Yes. Clause C says assessing officer has information in respect of such person for the relevant assessment year in his possession under the Smugglers Foreign Exchange Manipulators Act, the provision of Benami Property Transactions Act, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act and Black Money Act and Imposition Act, and the same has been communicated to him prior to the date of furnishing of return under this subsection. So this is clause C, and clause D is information for the relevant assessment year has been received under an agreement referred to in section 90 or section 90A in respect of such person, and the same has been communicated to him. So for both these, they have used the terminology communicated to him. While for the purpose of assessment or reassessment, there the terminology is different. There the terminology is any proceeding for assessment or reassessment or recomputation or revision of Income Tax Act is pending or has been completed. So is pending only till notice is issued? Probably we cannot say it is pending. Issue of 148A notice cannot be said to be that proceedings are pending. Proceeding for assessment or reassessment are pending. But again, this will be a highly debatable point.
So what is the quality of this information? How this information is different from pendency of proceedings of reassessment, assessment or recomputation? ये तीनों words जो आपने बिल्कुल, I mean, which are also there for your reassessment purposes, and whether I have, I mean, highly debatable. Yeah.
Then another point which has been given in this provision, that you have the opportunity to file updated return only once. Once you have filed, then again it cannot be revised. You cannot file the revised updated return. That is not, this only one time opportunity is there. Probably these are the provisions in nutshell. The opportunity has been given to the assessee that if they want to come clean, knowing that department is in possession of certain information, either by way of annual information report or by way of some kind of action which has taken place in the case of some other person on that basis, or for some other reason it has been left. Another thing can be that now the Act of Black Money Act, there are so many adverse consequences which are going to fall upon the persons who are getting converted from non-resident, or rather not ordinarily resident to resident. When they get converted to resident, they are required to disclose the particulars of all their foreign assets held in the income tax return to be filed in India. And the penalty is imposable not when your income is liable to be taxed. Even if there is no income liable to be taxed, there is no foreign income when you become the resident, non-disclosure of the particulars may also lead to imposition of penalty of rupees 10 lakhs per year.
Yes.
That is also there. So the persons who are getting converted, or their status is being changed from not ordinary resident to resident. When you are non-resident, there is a window of not ordinary resident. Not ordinary resident are also not covered within the ambit of Black Money Act. But once that window is over, you convert from non-ordinary resident to resident, then the consequences are quite serious. Then you have to declare all your foreign assets which are held, non-disclosure attached penalty. So there is likelihood, and there are so many cases which are coming when there are these kind of lapses being committed by the resident persons, by the NRIs coming to India. So therefore, they may also take advantage of filing this updated tax return.
Can we revise the updated return?
No, it cannot be. This is only one time opportunity.
उसमें कोई अगर कोई मेरे से कैलकुलेशन मिस्टेक हो गया, कोई अरिथमेटिकल एरर हो गया, ये एक संभावना है जिसको आप टेस्ट करके दिखाएं।
और सर रिकम्पुटेशन रिवीजन, इसको थोड़ा एलोबरेट कीजिए।
So, if we see clause A of third proviso, it says that an updated return has been furnished by him under this subsection for the relevant assessment year. The person who has already filed an updated return cannot file again updated return. So therefore, there is
only tweaking. For instance, if I were to do it, and a very astute tax expert like Garg Saab says कि भाई Asim, your mathematics is in any case very poor, you've not considered few numbers correctly. So can I just, within the limited scope of maybe not adding more items, but let's say only in a very benign manner of recomputation. So can I do that? That was one thought which crossed my mind.
Asanji, if we look to the plain provision, I think this kind of opportunity may not be available, because return is to be filed online, and once you have filed the updated return, your portal may not permit you to file revised updated return. But of course, if some tax liability is there, you can pay the tax liability. When proceedings are taken up, then you can plead reasonable cause for the purpose of imposition of penalty. That you know better how this kind of argument can be.
Yeah.
How this kind of argument at a later stage.
Yeah. What if I'm, let's say, adding some unreported income, which ultimately leads to lesser aggregated income. Let's say there is an unreported income which finally results in maybe a corresponding deduction or an allowance or a set of, then is it something which I cannot do just because it is not to the benefit of the tax department, so updated return cannot be filed?
Yes, there is a clear-cut provision. It is written there that it cannot be filed. Any proceeding, there are three situations, A, B, C. If the return is a return of loss, it cannot be filed. If it has the effect of decreasing the total tax liability, determined on the basis of return furnished under subsection 1, 4 or 5 of section 139. Or third, it results in refund or increases the refund due on the basis of return furnished earlier. So in all the three conditions, the person is debarred from filing the tax return, updated tax return.
So whether loss to loss return can be filed or not?
If
It is a loss, again it is a loss.
If it is resulting in increase in loss, then it cannot be filed.
Decrease in loss.
Decrease in loss.
मेरा पहले 50 करोड़ लॉस था, 20 करोड़ रह गया, कैन आई फाइल?
तो अगर अपन इसका लिटरल मीनिंग देखेंगे तो उन्होंने कहा रिटर्न ऑफ लॉस कैन नॉट बी फाइल्ड. But if you are reducing the loss, it is going to the benefit of the department. So probably that may be accepted. The idea is that updated return is for the benefit of the department, not for the benefit of the assessee. Something which you have already earned, you cannot take the benefit out of your error, your mistake.
And
So this is like the
division.
Sunilji, you are not audible.
Okay.
हाँ सुनील जी बताइए.
Sir, what about recomputation revision? Meaning of recomputation revision?
नहीं रिवीजन तो क्योंकि ये जो लैंग्वेज है ना 148 में भी ये लैंग्वेज अब यूज कर रहे हैं वो. तो वहाँ रिवीजन तो 263 का भी हो सकता है. तो 263 में रिवीजन की प्रोसीडिंग्स हो सकती हैं. तो वो जो लैंग्वेज है उन्होंने वहीं से पिक की हुई है. Assessment.
154 revision is also a revision, sir. Rectification is revision 154 or not? 154 का. And if there is a pending intimation 143 1A, then another question is very important, sir. If the original return is a defective return, then what will happen? If original is a defective return 139.9 and the department says if the defect is not removed, then it will be deemed true that return has never been filed. सर मेरे डिफेक्टिव रिटर्न हो गई मेरी असीम जी और वो डिफेक्ट दूर नहीं किया मैंने. अब सवाल ये उठा कि 139 नहीं कहता है कि आपने अगर डिफेक्ट दूर नहीं किया तो इट विल बी डीम्ड दैट रिटर्न हैज नेवर बीन फाइल्ड.
Yeah, non-east, as if you've never filed a return.
Now I want to file a return now, updated return. तो क्या होगा? What will be the situation? क्योंकि जो मैं टैक्स जमा कर चुका था 139.9 जो ओरिजिनल रिटर्न में, अब चूंकि सिचुएशन इज कि माय रिटर्न इज नॉट बीइंग ट्रीटेड एज फाइल्ड, तो 234 से लग जाएगा नहीं लगेगा? That is a gray area.
Yeah, that's a gray area because your defective return, though, is treated as non-east as if never has been filed. I mean, when the courts do end up interpreting updated return, equities have to be balanced. You can't all the way apply the Sun Engineering doctrine that this is only for the benefit of, the way 148 decision was there, that is only in a situation where it benefits the tax department. I mean, one will argue points of unjust enrichment, so on and so forth. Equities have to be balanced. You can't deprive, suggesting the fact that no, you filed a defective return. Well, somebody can say you were not vigilant about it, and you would have been more vigilant. The per contra view would be that, well, then why this option which is given? So equities have to be balanced on this. बंसल साहब का व्यू लेते हैं इस पर.
नहीं, but my just I want to add this thing that even if you have not filed the return earlier and now you want to file after the end of the assessment year updated under section 139 8A, one can do it. It is not necessary that only when earlier return has been filed, only then now you can file it. If earlier return has not been filed, then also you can file the updated return. So therefore, if defective return is there, then also you can file the updated return, and whatever the taxes have been paid, you can take benefit of those taxes.
पर इंटरेस्ट की कैलकुलेशन फर्क पड़ जाएगा ना सर?
Sir, वो तो पड़ेगी, because when defective return is non-assed, then whatever the consequences of interest would be there, those you will have to face.
सर वो गर्ग साहब ब्याज तो देना पड़ेगा.
क्या देना पड़ेगा उसको?
पर 234 से नहीं लगता ना अगर ऑलरेडी रिटर्न फाइल है तो.
But if it is treated as if it has not been filed. Yeah.
Yes, बंदल साहब आप कुछ कह रहे थे?
हाँ.
बस मैं तो ये कह रहा था, इन्होंने बताया जैसे रीअसेसमेंट के में फॉर बेनिफिट ऑफ डिपार्टमेंट है, तो वो जगन मोहन का डिसीजन है सुप्रीम कोर्ट का.
Yeah.
हाँ.
Yeah, 198 ITR.
हाँ.
Although the Karnataka High Court.
Any proceeding, if it is going to the benefit of the assessee, department has authority to drop it. बाकी पेनल्टी पे तो बहुत सारे रहते हैं. पेनल्टी लगेगी कि तो कब किन सर्कमस्टांसेस, स्ट्रिक्ट इंटरप्रिटेशन है पेनल्टी का तो प्रोविजन का.
A new era of discussion now has evolved. This updated return.
सर ये बहुत सारी कॉम्प्लिकेशन आने वाली हैं, ये लिटिगेशन बढ़ाने
Exactly what my point was, that they could have elaborated in an enabling manner the revised return provision. You will continue to endlessly debate.
Expanding the area for litigation only.
So we can proceed further.
Yes.
Yes. So I mean, apart from the provision of updated return, one more change which has been brought under section 133A. Let me just discuss very small 2 points are there. First of all, in the last year's budget, Finance Act 2021, the power of conducting survey was restricted only to the investigation wing of the department and to the TDS wing of the assessment wing of the department. The assessment officers or the other officers in the hierarchy of the assessment other than TDS were not, the power of conducting survey was taken away from them. And this was done in by making a very small change, that the tax authority, which have been defined under section 133A, they have said that the commissioner of income tax, only TDS was added. That only commissioner of income tax, TDS, would be the authority who would be authorized to conduct survey. Otherwise, other commissioners and the officers below him will not be allowed, will not be permitted to conduct survey. Investigation wing department officers can conduct survey. Now that position has been reversed in this year's budget. The word TDS, which was added, has been again deleted. It means that now the authority has again been given to conduct survey to all the officers, even in the assessment wing. It will depend now upon the internal policy of the department, which is framed that they want the survey to be conducted. What is the parameter for conducting the survey for that purpose? So far as the legal restriction, which was there under section 133A, which was imposed only last year, it has been again reversed. This is one change which has been made in the provision of 133A. And secondly, in 133A provision, this has also been mentioned that no set-off of losses will be permitted. Because if survey has been conducted and you declare the income and file the return and take benefit of any set-off of the losses brought forward or for the current year, then the benefit of those losses will not be allowed to be adjusted against the declared income during survey. This is another change which has been made. It is on the line which is there under section 115 BBE also, or in deemed incomes provision also, that set of losses will not be allowed to be given to the assessee. So this is another change which has been made in this year's budget. Another, because we have already discussed, these were the 2 points which were assigned to me, but I can just make one more point regarding the cess. Bansal Sahab referred this, that the provision of cess, they have clarified that now it is in the nature of tax, and this provision has been made retrospectively. It means that when this amendment is retrospective from the beginning, from the inception, it means that earlier year cases can also be reopened for if the time limit permits. If cess has been claimed as expense by the assessee. But it will depend upon the internal policy of the department whether they allow to make, because now 148 can be done based upon the risk analysis strategy and the policy to be framed by the CBDT. So depending upon that, if it falls within that ambit of that strategy or that risk analysis policy, then those cases may be opened. Otherwise, they may not initiate reopening kind of cases.
Indeed, we are waiting for your.
Yes, Asimji.
I have 10 minutes. Shrutika, can you just quickly upload the presentation? I just will take 2 or 3 slides, and after all the illuminatory discourse which we've had, I don't know how much value I can add, frankly, Bansal Sahab, but I'll try my best.
Certainly we will be benefited, all we will benefit by it.
I've been asked to speak on reassessment, and
our subject time is short. We know.
Time is short.
Sir, we have questions also actually.
So what I'll do is just upload the presentation, slide number 10. I'll take 5 minutes, and then after that we can take questions, because answering questions is most important.
Sir, just give me a minute.
Or you'll eat 1 minute out of my 5. Slide 10 straight away. Let's jump to slide 10. In the meanwhile, while Shrutika does it, all of us are well aware that scheme of reassessment went in under change Wide Finance Act 2021 with the hope that this will be an efficient mechanism and reduce litigation. On the contrary, I was talking in lighter vein to an eminent counsel that Court of Writ has become actually Court of Appeal. And with 1,346 matters getting disposed of by the landmark decision of Manmohan Kohli, and another batch matter which is still pending before the Delhi High Court in the lead case of Sharad Garg, I really don't know, of course, and the SLP is also pending against the one decision of the High Court which is contrary to the majority concurrent view of several benches of High Court on the same proposition of law with regard to issuance of notice post 1st April issued under old law. And of course, the last word will be of the Supreme Court on this. I understand that the SLP is up and due for hearing before vacations before the Supreme Court. And Sharad Garg's matter is now listed for hearing on 11th of April. So what, and one can technically argue that, well, these litigations are not really litigations emanating under reassessment provision. Yes, I agree to that finer extent that these litigations are only with regard to how the amendments were proposed and the taxation ordinance legislative act, popularly known as TOLA, its interplay with Finance Act. I also had the opportunity to address the court while that amongst those batch of attorneys who argued Manmohan Kohli. It was a pleasure to be appearing before the bench. But all in all, what has happened? I mean, you look at, and even now, left, right, and center if notices are being issued, and for want of efficacious alternate remedy, you have no choice but to appear before the High Court. So I sincerely believe that these reassessment provisions finally, after these writ petitions are over, really comes to the rescue of taxpayer, because अभी तो नया रीअसेसमेंट का लॉ ही नहीं टेस्ट हुआ सब्सटैंटिवली. Then Finance Bill 2022 proposed amendments in that scheme itself. So it still had not sunk in or settled. Still, we've got another set of amendments which have come in place now, which I wanted to discuss. So Finance Act 2022 has now dispensed with the requirement of procuring approval of specified authority before issuing a notice to the assessee. So I don't know from an administrative law point whether those checks and balances, having those checks and balances would have been helpful. Then there's an amendment in section 148 which has provided an exhaustive definition to the term information. And in explanation 1, the following has been added as information: audit objection, information under section 90, 135 capital A, ये faceless वाली चीज से तो बहुत डर लगता है. And then direction of the court and tribunal. The term flagged has been omitted in section 148 clause I, and following instances has been added as deemed information in explanation 2, which is survey जिसका जिक्र राज जी ने किया, and search or requisition or survey is deemed information for 10 years in place of erstwhile 3 years. You go back to the speech of the Honorable Finance Minister in 2021, 6 years, we are reducing it to 3 years, provide certainty, the domiciles court should not hang. Now from 3 we are back to 10 years. In fact, I have done a recent article which I also sent it to the Direct Tax Committee, which also has been published otherwise, that how voluntary is voluntary tax compliance, looking at the amendments made in Finance Bill 2022, including the amendments to the Finance Bill itself, both of them. Audit objection, what kind of audit objection? Does it have a qualitative check or not? Revenue audits, information. Remember, 148A is not an appealable order. The GK and drive shaft doctrine, which has now been legislated in the scheme of the Act, is not an appealable order. So what do? You get 148A proceedings, you file your objections, you get a disposal on that. Then what do? Should you immediately go for a writ because of 148A not being appealable? While I am speaking with you, I am conscious of two decisions, Bansal Sahab, which comes to my mind: 383 ITR Amaya Infrastructure and 440 ITR Chhagan Bhujbal, which says that if you participate, then why have you come before us?
And Bombay High Court recently has.
Both of them are Bombay High Court decisions. You're right. Now, what do? So, and the judge made law is that please wait for 30 days before you pass an order. And all these orders which you have seen recently, because of the limitation period not getting extended in reassessment cases, without opportunity, the orders have been passed. We already are languishing before the courts that failure of opportunity in the first round of faceless before the amendments came in the scheme of Income Tax Act dealing with providing that mandatory video conferencing and 144C, etc. Now what do? So you are caught between a rock and a hard place, very frankly. So I am not very confident whether these new reassessment provisions all by itself are a panacea or they will precipitate litigation. I mean, go 10-15 years ago, the flavor at High Court was 148. About few years back down the line, 148 litigations had considerably subsided, but yes, you had litigation. But now in the High Court, it's back to square one, and this is all at the misery of taxpayer. I mean, all of us will end up learning at the cost of taxpayer. My worry is the manner in which the amendments have been made in the Finance Bill 2022. It sounds to me as retrograde. And then importantly, maybe Garg Sahab would want to speak on this. गर्ग साहब वो 149(1) क्लॉज बी में अब आपने वो वही 3 साल से 10 साल एसेट एक्सपेंडिचर और एन एंट्री और एंट्रीज इन बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स. Yeah, just slide 14. I think we don't have time. Just let's come to slide 14. I don't know how much it is visible to the audience, but let's see if it is. And yeah. So गर्ग साहब अब वो आप खर्चा कर दिया तो आप पूरे के पूरे 10 साल खोल देंगे तो 50 लाख तो बड़ी छोटी थ्रेशोल्ड है. I mean, I'm sure the taxpayer will also feel complexed if his case is less than 50 lakhs of rupees in present times. You know, so how do you go about it? I mean, I think it's back to 10 years. I mean,
surely this is extended rather than reducing. The term has been extended, and lot of information is with the department.
So 149(1) capital A, which says that the above amendment would, I mean, where a notice under section 148 shall be issued for every such assessment year. Will we make a distinction? I mean, I was looking back, trying to do a comparative law legislation, when the special assessment of search, वो भी तो पिछले साल से उड़ ही गए अब, 153A, B, C, and the High Court said that, well, it has to be seen qua the year in which the income has escaped is not undisclosed, that Kabul Chawla and other doctrine, so to speak.
Incriminating material.
Yeah, for that particular year and not for the entire 6+1 year, so to speak. So this is all I had to speak. Sorry, I am rushed because it's 7:30 and Shrutika tells us that there are questions which we could take up with such an eminent panel. I'm sure we'll be able, amongst Bansal Saab, Rajji and Sunilji, I think we can take up the questions. Shrutika, can you please help in narrating the questions? Because we don't know how to access it, frankly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll just go through the questions one by one. Sir, am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Whether dealer conference expenses will be treated as income of dealer? Hello?
गर्ग साहब, ये डीलर की इनकम कैसे हो जाएगी?
He is talking about section 28(4) amendment now.
Yes. Yeah.
Any perquisite or benefit in the kind given to, then whether this conference expenditure will be income and 194R will be applicable or not. This is the question. I think if it is a conference for the business purpose only, then it cannot be added back. It cannot be taken as the benefit or perquisite in section 28(4), which is recently amended by the Finance Act 2022.
Agreed.
अगर आपको कोई स्पेशल बेनिफिट है, कार दिया है, गिफ्ट दिया है, आपको घुमाने ले गए हैं, बाहर ले गए हैं, तो उसके लिए वो सेक्शन है, डीलर कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए नहीं है मेरे हिसाब से.
Agreed. Shrutika, next question, please.
Whether accounting records to be maintained by all assessees?
No. Who are under obligation to maintain the accounts only. Otherwise.
I think Rajji was trying to suggest something. Rajji, you were trying to suggest something.
All assessees are not required to maintain books of accounts. It is only those who are mentioned under section 44 AA. Only those persons are required to maintain books of accounts. The amendment which has been brought in this year's budget is only for charitable organizations. That if you are falling, you are registered under section 1112 of the Act or under section 23 as charitable organization, then you are required to maintain books of accounts. Otherwise, the individuals, the other non-business associates are not required to maintain books of accounts.
Okay, sir. Whether religious trust will be covered by section 215?
No, 215 does not cover religious purpose, it's only charitable purpose. Or religious purpose has not been defined anywhere in the Act. We have to take it from the general meaning. But section 11 covers wholly religious, party religious, wholly charitable, or party religious. But a religious trust can get the registration under section 12 AB, of course.
Several religious institutions like temple, churches not registered with Income Tax Act and income exceeds taxable limit. What's the status about these institutions?
Of course, there is a debate whether 56 to 10 will be applicable to those temple or churches or not. कि आपको 50,000 से ज़्यादा आपको अगर डोनेशन आती है तो आपको मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा. तो डिबेटेबल इशू है वो कि आपकी नेट रिसीट्स को टैक्स किया जाएगा या 56 to 10 विल बी एप्लीकेबल. टू माई माइंड, because whenever you get a donation, so it is not without consideration or without adequate consideration. अगर मैं रजिस्टर्ड हूँ एज ए ट्रस्ट और एज ए सोसाइटी, तो आई एम अंडर ऑब्लिगेशन टू स्पेंड दैट अमाउंट फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ द चैरिटेबल पर्पज और रिलीजियस पर्पज, जिसके लिए मुझे ट्रस्ट बनाया है या सोसाइटी बनाई है. तो मेरे हिसाब से 56 to 10 नहीं लगना चाहिए. हाँ, एक बात और मैं कहूँगा, इस बार ATG, इस बार रिलीजियस के लिए एक बड़ा अमेंडमेंट आया है. और ये अमेंडमेंट कहा है फाइनेंस एक्ट में कि अगर आप रिलीजियस है, रिलीजियस ट्रस्ट है या सोसाइटी है, तो आप अपनी सारी डोनेशन को, वॉलंटरी कंट्रीब्यूशन को आप कॉर्पस डोनेशन मान सकते हैं और कॉर्पस ट्रीट करके उसको आप इनकम से बाहर ले जाइए. बट यू हैव टू स्पेंड दैट अमाउंट फॉर द पर्पज इट इज रिसीव्ड, एंड दिस इज द अनदर अमेंडमेंट बाय फाइनेंस एक्ट 2022. सर, यू वांट टू ऐड religious?
Yes, perfect. Sir. But what 215 ka interpretation is spot on. I mean, whatever little I know on that count.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shrutika, next question.
As per amendment proposed to section 11(3), if the accumulated income is not utilized for the purpose for which it is accumulated or set apart, it shall be deemed to be the income of the previous year, being the last previous year of the period of which it is accumulated. Hence, now if the accumulated income is not applied within 5 years, the same shall be taxed in the 5th year itself. Before the amendment, it was taxed in the 6th year under section 11(3) of the Act, applicable with effect from 23-24. Please clarify if the 5th year of income accumulated expires on 31st March 22, will 6th year for utilization?
नहीं, पहली बात तो ये है कि बिकॉज दिस अमेंडमेंट विल टेक इफेक्ट फ्रॉम 1 अप्रैल 2022, तो इफ द लास्ट ईयर इज 22, देन ऑफ कोर्स इट अमेंडमेंट विल नॉट अफेक्ट दोज केसेस. इसमें एक सवाल और जो उठ के आ रहा है, वो दो इंटरप्रिटेशन आ रही हैं कि अगर आपने एक्यूमुलेशन 1/4/22 से पहले की है, मतलब आपने मान लो 1920 में की है और उसका 5 साल 2025 में खत्म हो रहा है, तो वहां पर क्या होगा? मेरे हिसाब से 2/9 जो एक्यूमुलेशन आपने पहले कर रखी है उनके लिए 5वां साल वही होगा, मतलब जैसे 22 में तो होगा तो 6th ईयर ही होगा. बाकी उसके बाद जो एक्यूमुलेशन करेंगे, क्योंकि इट इज ईयर टू ईयर बेसिस. और सेकेंडली इसमें भी 2 पार्ट है 11(3) में. अगर आप पहली 3 कंडीशंस को वायलेट करते हैं, आप 11(5) के मोड से निकाल देते हैं या आप ऑब्जेक्ट के अलावा खर्च कर देते हैं, उसमें एक कंडीशन है 11(3) में कि आप डोनेट कर देते हैं किसी दूसरे ट्रस्ट को, तब भी वो इनकम मान ली जाती है. और इनकम ऑफ दैट प्रीवियस ईयर व्हेन दिस वायलेशन अकर्स, अगर 5 साल का एक्यूमुलेशन किया, आपने खर्चा नहीं किया, तो 6th ईयर में था. तो फॉर ऑल प्रैक्टिकल पर्पज द एक्यूमुलेशन विच ऑलरेडी बीन डन और जिसका 22 में 5th ईयर है, तो उसके लिए तो 1 साल मिलेगा ही मिलेगा, टू माई माइंड.
Perfectly all right.
Yeah, perfect. Shrutika?
Then no more questions are there.
Okay, then amongst us we have to thank each other, or are there some niceties or protocol which needs to be followed?
Actually, I'm calling Raj Chavla sir, but his phone is busy.
Yeah, no, it has to be busy. I'm sure he and Chatle Saab are meant for better and important things. I think we can all applying Sunil ji's favorite doctrine of mutuality. We can thank amongst us each other and
Sir, Raj Chavla sir is joining. Raj Chavla sir is joining.
Okay. Shrutika, please feel free as per your protocol to circulate the presentation if
Yeah,
it
sir.
is.
I'll host it on the ICI TV so that everyone can download and.
The only thing is that it was very ticklish enough considering the passage of the finance bill in Lok Sabha and in Rajya Sabha, and everything happened very quickly, and then the assent came very quickly. So to that extent, I'm sure the delegates will appreciate that this all was done during these very fast-paced, moving days of last week.
There are so many other topics also very interested which have been left.
Yeah, crypto at least is one which I thought I.
And other merger issues and reconstruction of business duration there, of modified returns. So many issues are there.
हेलो
Yeah,
सर वो राज चावला सर को तो क्या उन्होंने ज्वाइन नहीं किया, आप ज्वाइन करेंगे ये वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए? अच्छा मीटिंग में, ठीक है सर, ठीक है
सुनील जी आपको ही करना पड़ेगा.
Coming back to mutuality.
Mutuality.
Thank you very much, Honorable President of the Direct Tax Committee.
Sunil, thanks to the audience. Thanks to the participants.
Yeah. I'm thanking the audience.
Raj Chawla ji aa gaye.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to all.
ये सामान इस पे रखो स्टूल पे.
Shrutika madam, complete हो गया?
Yes sir, yes sir.
Okay. So now I would like to present formal vote of thanks. First of all, I am thankful to the Shri I.P. Bansal ji, our senior most member, ex-ITAT member, for enlightening the new provisions under Finance Act 2022. Then I am thankful to C. Aseem Chawla ji, my dear brother and mentor of our this webathon. हमने यहाँ पे भी सर का कंसेप्ट चलाया और मैं समझता हूँ बहुत लोगों को इस चीज का फायदा मिलेगा. एंड आई एम आल्सो थैंकफुल टू CA R.K. अग्रवाल जी, ए वेरी सीनियर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, वेरी बहुत ही लर्नर्ड पर्सन, जिनसे हम BVSS में भी बहुत कुछ सीखते हैं. थैंक यू सर. एंड आई एम आल्सो थैंकफुल टू CA सुनील गर्ग जी, सदाबहार हमारे सुनील जी. And in the last, I am thankful to the Direct Tax Committee Chairman Chitle sir, our staff CA Trutika Oberoi, Secretary of the committee, and other technical staff for supporting this webinar. So I am also thankful to all the members attending this our program. So thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.